All right, so I was watching a video this morning on from Anthropic and talking about creating agents, this and that. And one thing the guy said really struck me hard, and it's really funny that I hadn't thought about it before, was we brought this up before. People have a misconception of AI. They often think that it's a program, and hey, 1 + 1 should be 2. We know that always doesn't happen, right? It's very weird in how that happens. But the other thing is, we will give it. We've worked on updating our prompts and this and that, and doing that very well. And then we give it code. And even recently, I've been uploading my libraries and having them stored in there. But what occurred to me when he said it was the libraries, I'm still kind of thinking it's a program, and it will know how to use all the functions in it, even if it's obscured or obfuscated, or not clear on the variable names or function names or methods or whatever, right? And if we were to, which we all always really encourage anyway, right, to increase the names of your variables so they're meaningful to yourself, right? It's going to help AI in the same way. Even though we think AI is this massive programmer, it takes a lot of intelligence to be able to follow something if it's not clear in the words of what it does. But if we were to go back into our libraries and increase the names of the methods and functions and variable names to help it understand the context, and at the same time annotate and code, put comments there saying, here's how I do this, right? This is what this function does, whatever. I think when we go to use it, it would use it much quicker and better because it has less understanding it has to do from figuring it out from what the code does versus we're telling it this is what this does.
All right.
It was a big one because I really think that'll help us get much better results.
If you want to go that route, I would say use AI as well, just to help you on that task. Like, go ahead and look at the code, comment this out. Go ahead and do this. Explain what it does. Put comments on that, and then use that same thing and send it over to the next task. Like, now that it's cleaned up and made a little bit better. Now on the other task, you say, okay, so use this library, do this, but it already contains comments and stuff that will help make understand what is going to happen next.
It's the same principle as yesterday, as when we were working through the cached API calls, right? We're basically saying, hey, we're going to use AI once to go help explain what the code does. Now have that stored cache, so to speak, of that idea of what it does. Now, why would we keep having AI figure that out every time? Right?
Exactly.
It's going to put it in there, and the AI, because it does understand the text much more than it would having to follow how the functions and things work, right?
Basically, that's what I was going to say. Like, why give it the task that you want plus the having to try to understand what's going on, right? Just separate those into two different parts, like wrap the code, make it easily understandable so that whenever you give it another task, it would not have to try to understand. And remember, it doesn't really understand. It just predicts. But the other thing is, if it is already annotated and clear, it doesn't have to process that at all anymore. It just reads and just does the other thing, focuses on the other thing, which is a great thing.
Yeah, that was exactly what my takeaway was. He said that, and I'm like, holy cow, he didn't go into it in depth of it. He's just like, we expect a lot out of AI. We treat it like it thinks of it as a program, and it's gonna just do, right? Not have to figure it out. And that was my big aha of like, we've been guilty. Even though we spend good time clarifying, we give it examples and we give it a good prompt, clear prompts and instructions. But I was just shoving in my libraries and functions,
saying like, fix it, do this,
use that thing. But hey, why don't we optimize explaining very clearly? Because just like, and I've told you this to Isaias too, the more I think of AI as another human, the better it is when I use it. Because I wouldn't give it to Irfan, go use this function, right? And he's like, he's going to have to figure out what it does.
He has to figure out what the function does, right? And basically, remember that AI is being modeled to think like a human, which is, it's kind of like, it's trying to understand humans, basically. So it's trying to act as one, so to speak, because it is doing the same sort of processing that we know that humans do, like it's grabbing one task and trying to.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
would tweak what you said because I don't know if it's actually purposely we've been trying to do that. I think it
I don't
does.
know.
Yeah, but there was an interesting video I watched this morning with a different guy, and he was talking about how poorly even and he's in the depth, in the weeds of how AI works, right? But he's like,
All
we
right.
can't explain it to people. We can't explain them. This is how it actually, the process happens. He's like, I watched one video and I forget what he called the term. Like they had a line going through where it's going. He's like, and it was all over the place, right? And he's like, because it's not a program, right? Like
Right, exactly. And basically, I would say, uh, even though if we didn't purposely made it that way, but the fact that we're modeling after neurons, it kind of like grabs you into that particular way of thinking because
yeah,
it is how human brains actually work. It has a lot of neurons, and each
yeah.
neuron is tasked with a very specific thing. So it's no wonder that he's doing something that is similar to humans when it is modeled after something so human, I guess.
I
No?
don't see the neural networks. Those were
Yeah.
definitely modeled after human
That's
brains.
what I'm saying, right? That's what I'm saying.
LMs aren't neural networks, right? They're
I
a whole
understand that, yes.
different thing, and that's why I'm like, I don't. Maybe you're right. I just don't know. And
No, I'm just stating an opinion here. It's not like that's how we do it because I cannot claim that I know anything about LLMs at that level, right?
yeah,
So I'm just saying, like for me, it makes sense that an LLM would behave as a human if the underlying mechanism is structured after something so human as a neuron, right? So at this point, what I'm saying now is like, I think you have a good example of you grabbing a piece of code that was not working, but you gave it the instructions in a very precise way, in which in the end, it just produced what you wanted.
right.
But if you had done it another way, just like very vague,
Yeah.
I think you wouldn't have gotten the same result in the end.
Well, just to prove your point. So the first pass where I did it, I said, just go ahead and update it, and it gave me this code, which of course I don't look at the code, right? I just ran it, and it totally truncated our GUI down to nut. And I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, hey,
Why you
don't
do
lose
that?
you really mangled. I think is what I said. Like you mangled my GUI, man. And it's like, oh yeah, I did remove a lot of functionality. I guess I shouldn't have done that. Let me add that all back. But it was funny because to your point, I should have been very clear in saying, don't remove any. It's something maybe we should also consider when we're doing our prompts. Don't remove
Yeah,
any current functionality, right? Because it's something
right.
we think would be implied, but maybe not, right?
Which is the
It's doing
bigger
what I got.
issue here. Like you
Oh,
don't know how many times your brain already has a lot of this
right,
pre-knowledge
right,
that we know if you give me your code, you're expecting it not to break. You're not expecting me to break your code. You want to make it better. And usually, as a programmer, I would try to keep the meaning of your code the same. And even if I change some stuff, it should stay mostly the same thing, the same way. I would change how the things are done, not what it's doing, right? But AI, if you tell it, oh, go ahead and fix my code, it would just go ahead and fix your code. Like it's gonna remove everything
well,
that's broken.
yeah,
I know it's just like gonna grab everything and make what it thinks is better, which in the end would result on, holy crap, this is not what I wanted, which is something that I was mentioning a few minutes ago. I think I was coding something and I showed you where AI kind of like went off the rails in a very stupid way. Which is you told it about a very specific error. You had a title and you were missing some characters in that window title, and you told AI, go ahead and fix it. What AI did is it grabbed the part that was dealing with the title and simply didn't use that. It just said, you know what, I'm going to grab the title as is and just going to make it red, and that's it. And I was like, hold on. When I looked at the code, I figured out, okay, there is a part of the code. It checks is an if statement, and it so just happens that 0 is false. And if the title contained a 0, that particular character was going to be removed from the title because it was false. And I said, no, this if statement, instead of if is not that character, I should change it to if the character is blank, I want to ignore it, which is I want to make sure that it is empty, right? AI didn't figure that one out. And I'm like, that's interesting. Why didn't it do that? And then we realize it is just because it doesn't know what my intention is. It's really good at following tasks, but not intentions.
This example, the thing, the title was README 10, right? That was the name of the window title. And I said that I kind of led it in that direction. I said, hey, my Windows Spy tool comes back with README 1, but the normal Windows Spy comes back with README 10. Why is it missing this 0 at the end? And can you fix it? Like I really, to your point, it did what I asked it to do. I didn't
not infer what you want, what your intention is.
Well, I think I didn't do a good job, thinking that there's other things that could be going on, right? I thought it was a simpler issue of like it's just truncating it somehow, or it's rounding it, which would be dumb. But
which let me make this analogy. It's just like trying to tell a hammer to build a table. It's like I can build a table with the hammer, but I cannot use the hammer to do everything that has to do with building a table. So if you tell AI, go ahead and fix that, you are using the tool not wrong. It's just like not as good as you could. And that means you have to be precise with your intention so that it can go ahead and do the work.
And back to your point, so let's pretend we're carpenters and like, here's our hammer. Well, we often will tell AI, go solve this. And we know it's going to probably require the GDI library or do some stuff with this. Well, that's where I started saying, why don't I shove in the GDI library I know works, right? Why don't I give it that as a resource? So it now knows I have a hammer and a drill and a level, and those things work. Why reinvent those things? But
exactly,
we're adding to that of like, hey, let's go make it clearer how those things work. So when it's in there, and I told it, use those things where applicable. So I don't always have to point it, but it knows that they're there, and it's I'm already getting much better results because of that in that project. It's very cool.
You are entering into the topic of tooling, which is part. So on your prompts, you are now being able to add files and tell it use those files as a tool. If you're doing AI programming using the API, that's where tools come in. I just tell it, you know what, you have this tool available and go ahead and ask for it whenever you need it. But when it asks for it, I just tell my program, go ahead and run that. You see what I mean? So it is the same concept. And now you're looking at it from the prompting perspective, because now you can add those files and say, point to that and use that, Right. On the API, we have been able to do that for a long time. Like you just tell it, this is a tool that you have available, go use it.
Well, it's basically when we tell it, because we've used it a lot for FFmpeg, right? And I use it to get me started, but it gives you, hey, FFmpeg is a tool we're going to use. Give us the code that will work with that tool. And yeah, it's easy peasy. Anyway, hope you guys all enjoyed that. I think this is a really, really good point. So hopefully you guys like that. If you like that, please like that in the video. Great day.
Bye.
Sure.